There is a question many people are asking today, often quietly, sometimes angrily, sometimes with genuine confusion. If Islam honors women, why does feminism feel necessary? And if feminism claims to liberate women, why does it feel so incompatible with faith? This is not a reactionary discussion. This is not about hating women or dismissing their pain. This is about two fundamentally different worldviews, trying to answer the same question: what does justice for women actually mean? What feminism is, and what it is not. Feminism did not emerge in a vacuum. It arose in the West as a response to real historical injustices. Women denied education. Women denied property rights. Women denied political voice. Women legally treated as dependents. Early feminist movements focused on legal equality, education, voting, ownership. At this stage, Islam would not object. Islam granted women independent legal identity, ownership of wealth, right to consent in marriage, right to inheritance, right to education, 14 centuries ago. So where does the conflict begin? The conflict begins when feminism moves beyond justice and redefines human purpose. Modern feminism does not merely ask, are women treated fairly? It asks, why should women have any predefined role at all? Feminism's core assumption. At the heart of modern feminism lies one key assumption: any difference in gender roles equals oppression. Hierarchy is assumed to be injustice. Leadership is assumed to be domination. Dependency is assumed to be weakness. This worldview sees marriage as power imbalance, motherhood as limitation, modesty as control, family as restriction. Freedom, therefore, becomes the highest moral good. Not moral goodness, not spiritual growth, not harmony, but choice without restraint. Islam does not share this assumption. Islam's moral framework. Islam begins from a different place entirely. Islam does not ask, what gives the individual maximum freedom? Islam asks, what brings the human being closest to Allah? In Islam, submission is not humiliation. Obedience is not oppression. Limits are not punishment. They are alignment with divine wisdom. Justice in Islam does not mean sameness. Justice means everything in its proper place. Men and women are not identical, biologically, emotionally, psychologically. But difference does not mean inferiority. The Quran does not present gender as competition. It presents it as complementarity. The feminist rejection of complementarity. Feminism fundamentally rejects complementarity. Why? Because complementarity implies mutual dependence, defined responsibilities, structured relationships, and structure is seen as danger. Islam, however, sees structure as mercy. Marriage is not ownership. It is responsibility. Leadership is not superiority. It is accountability. Motherhood is not confinement. It is one of the highest acts of worship. The Prophet, peace be upon him, placed paradise under the feet of mothers, not corporations, not governments, not ideologies. Sexual liberation versus moral protection. One of the most visible differences lies in sexuality. Modern feminism often promotes sexual freedom as empowerment, removal of boundaries, redefinition of family. Islam does not deny sexuality. Islam disciplines it. Pleasure is not sinful, but pleasure without responsibility is destructive. Feminism promised that sexual liberation would free women, but the result? Increased objectification, increased emotional abandonment, increased single motherhood, increased exploitation under the name of choice. Islam protects sexuality because it protects human dignity, the family, enemy or anchor. Feminism often treats the family as a site of oppression. Islam treats the family as the foundation of society. The family is where children learn mercy, women are protected, men are morally restrained. When the family weakens, women do not become freer. They become more exposed. Islam places responsibility on men, financial obligation, physical protection, moral leadership. When men fail, that is a moral failure, not a flaw in Islam. Misuse of Islam versus Islam itself. This is important. Women have been oppressed in the name of Islam, but oppression is not Islam. Culture does not equal Quran. Abuse does not equal Sharia. Misogyny does not equal Sunnah. Islam strictly condemns injustice. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, fear Allah regarding women, for you have taken them as a trust from Allah. A trust is not something you dominate. A trust is something you protect. Feminism as cultural imperialism. Historically, feminism was used by colonial powers to portray Muslim societies as backward. The hijab became a symbol of oppression, not because Muslim women said so, but because outsiders decided it for them. Ironically, many Western feminists defend a woman's right to undress, but mock a woman's right to cover. Islamic modesty is not about hiding women. It is about centering their worth beyond the male gaze. The psychological cost of modern feminism. Modern feminism tells women, you must be everything. You must need no one. You must prioritize self above all. But humans are not designed for isolation. Islam does not glorify independence. It glorifies interdependence. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to soften. You are allowed to rest in roles Allah honored. Islamic womanhood. Islam does not erase women. It dignifies them. Women in Islam owned businesses, like Hazrat Khadija, spoke truth to power, raised generations that changed history, that they did not need to become men to be powerful. Their strength was rooted in taqwa, not rebellion. Conclusion. Two different goals. Feminism's goal, freedom from all constraints. Islam's goal, nearness to Allah through disciplined freedom. These are not the same destination. Islam does not need feminism to honor women. It needs men and women who actually live Islam. And perhaps the question is not, is Islam compatible with feminism? But why are we measuring divine guidance by human ideologies at all? Another uncomfortable truth that rarely gets discussed is this. Modern feminism claims to fight patriarchy, yet it quietly reinforces a different kind of control, one that is less visible, more psychological, and far harder to escape. In many societies today, a woman is told she is free only if she fits a very narrow definition of success: career-driven, emotionally detached, sexually autonomous, financially independent, and constantly productive. If she desires marriage, softness, spiritual grounding, or motherhood as a primary identity, she is subtly treated as someone who's settled, someone who lacked ambition, or someone who was manipulated by tradition. This creates a new pressure, not less pressure. Instead of being forced into the home, women are now often forced out of it emotionally, shamed if they choose a life centered around family, faith, or inner peace. Islam, by contrast, never created a single model of womanhood. It did not demand that every woman be the same, live the same life, or chase the same markers of success. It recognized diversity in capacity, desire, and circumstance. Some women were scholars. Some were mothers of scholars. Some led businesses. Some lived quietly and raised righteous children who changed the world. Their worth was never measured by visibility or productivity, but by sincerity and obedience to Allah. There is also a biological reality that modern ideology struggles to address honestly. Men and women are not psychologically interchangeable. Numerous studies in neuroscience and psychology, regardless of ideology, show differences in stress response, emotional processing, risk-taking behavior, and attachment patterns between men and women. Ignoring these differences does not erase them. It only creates frustration when lived experience does not match ideological promises. Many women today report higher levels of anxiety, loneliness, and burnout despite unprecedented freedom. Islam never denied biology. It worked with it. It structured obligations in a way that accounted for physical differences, emotional labor, pregnancy, childbirth, and caregiving responsibilities that no amount of ideology can redistribute equally. Equality in Islam was never about splitting burdens identically. It was about ensuring that no one was crushed under responsibilities they were not designed to carry alone. Another point rarely acknowledged is how feminism approaches power. Feminism often frames power as something that must be seized, challenged, or overturned. Islam frames power as something that must be restrained. Leadership in Islam is not a prize. It is a liability. Authority is coupled with accountability. A man is not elevated by being a leader in the household. He is burdened by it. He will be questioned by Allah for provision, protection, fairness, and mercy. This is not privilege. It is responsibility. When Islamic systems fail women, it is usually because men abandon their responsibilities while keeping their authority, something Islam explicitly condemns. Feminism reacts to this failure by rejecting the entire structure. Islam responds by demanding moral reform, not structural erasure. It is also important to recognize that many women turn to feminism not because they reject Islam, but because they have been emotionally starved within religious spaces. When women are silenced, dismissed, or reduced to obedience without compassion, they will search for dignity elsewhere. Islam never intended women to be voiceless. The wives of the Prophet questioned him, debated him, corrected him, and narrated knowledge that shaped Islamic law. Silence was never piety. Blind endurance was never worship. Islam does not ask women to tolerate abuse in the name of patience. It asks communities to prevent injustice in the name of God. Perhaps the deepest difference between Islam and feminism lies in how they understand fulfillment. Feminism promises fulfillment through self-definition. You decide who you are, what you are worth, and what your life should mean. Islam offers fulfillment through surrender. You discover who you are by aligning with the one who created you. One approach places the burden of meaning entirely on the individual. The other lifts that burden and places it in divine hands. When a woman fails under feminism, she blames herself. When a woman struggles in Islam, she is reminded that struggle itself can be worship, that hardship does not negate worth, and that unseen sacrifices are recorded even when society does not applaud them. Ultimately, this is not a battle between men and women, nor is it a war between religion and progress. It is a conflict between two visions of the human being. One sees humans as autonomous units seeking maximum control over their lives. The other sees humans as servants seeking harmony with divine wisdom. Islam does not promise ease. Feminism does not deliver peace. But Islam offers something feminism cannot. A framework where dignity is not earned, visibility is not required, youth is not worshipped, and worth does not expire. In a world constantly telling women to become more, Islam dares to tell them, you are already enough, as you are, in the sight of Allah. There is also a spiritual cost to modern ideologies that rarely gets acknowledged: the erosion of meaning during suffering. Feminism often frames hardship as proof of systemic failure, something to escape, dismantle, or eliminate at all costs. Pain becomes intolerable because it is seen as pointless. Islam, however, gives suffering a language, a purpose, and a destination. It does not glorify pain, but it dignifies it. A woman who struggles, who sacrifices quietly, who endures emotional weight unseen by society, is not invisible to Allah. Her tears are not wasted. Her exhaustion is not meaningless. This worldview fundamentally changes how hardship is experienced. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Islam teaches the believer to ask, what is this drawing out of me? That shift alone can be psychologically grounding. In a world where women are constantly told they must be happy, fulfilled, and empowered at all times or else something is wrong with them. Another rarely discussed aspect is how feminism treats dependency as weakness. Needing emotional support, financial provision, or protection is framed as a failure of independence. Yet human beings are, by nature, interdependent. No one survives alone. Islam acknowledges this openly. It does not shame dependency. It organizes it ethically. A woman is allowed to rely on a man without being diminished. A man is obligated to provide without being glorified. Both are bound to Allah, not to ego or control. Feminism, in attempting to erase dependency, often replaces it with isolation. Many women today are independent, yet profoundly alone, carrying financial pressure, emotional labor, and decision fatigue without communal or familial support. Islam does not promise independence. It promises belonging. There is also the question of time, how different worldviews treat aging, fertility, and seasons of life. Feminism often centers youth as power. Beauty, desirability, and productivity peak early, leaving women anxious about time slipping away. Islam, on the other hand, honors every stage. A young woman is valued. A mother is elevated. An older woman is revered. Her worth does not decline as her fertility fades or her body changes. In fact, many women in Islamic tradition gained their greatest influence later in life through wisdom, counsel, and spiritual depth. This is not accidental. It reflects a system that does not extract value from women and discard them when they no longer serve economic or aesthetic functions. It is also important to talk about choice because feminism often presents itself as the ideology of choice. Yet, not all choices are made freely. Many are shaped by economic pressure, cultural conditioning, trauma, or fear of social judgment. Islam does not pretend that every desire is sacred, simply because it exists. It asks a harder question. Will this choice bring you closer to Allah or further from Him? That question is deeply countercultural in a world that worships personal preference. But it is also deeply stabilizing. It removes the burden of constantly reinventing oneself. It offers an anchor in a society where women are told they must always be evolving, optimizing, upgrading, never resting. Finally, there is the matter of justice. Feminism often frames justice as equality of outcome. Islam frames justice as fairness according to truth. Treating unequal things equally is not justice. It is negligence. Islam recognizes differences without ranking them as superiority. A woman's value is not less because her role is different. A man's authority is not a reward. It is a trust. When Islamic justice is properly implemented, women do not need feminism to protect them. They need integrity, accountability, and God consciousness within their communities. In the end, many women are not choosing between Islam and feminism consciously. They are choosing between pain and dignity, silence and voice, abandonment and belonging. When Islam is presented harshly, feminism appears compassionate. When Islam is lived correctly, feminism becomes unnecessary. This conversation is not about rejecting women's pain, it is about refusing solutions that ignore the soul. Because any system that claims to liberate women while disconnecting them from Allah will eventually leave them searching again. And the search always ends in the same place: the need to be seen, held, and known by the one who created them.